welcome to the Slice of Wine podcast, the podcast that gives you snippets of the people, places, and innovations behind the barrel. I'm your host, Amy Cronin, and today I'm speaking with Derek Vinnicombe of Vinnicombe Imports, a company that represents a diverse portfolio of fine family-owned German wines. Welcome, Derek.
Amy, great to see you. Welcome to Germany.
I know, it looks beautiful. Much sunnier there today.
Oh, that's the Rhine behind me. Oh, that way. That's the Rhine behind me.
I love your name up in the sky like Batman.
Oh. Well, I'm getting older, so I need something to remind me about my name. Otherwise,
oh, good. Yes, yeah. Yeah, you've been in the wine industry in Germany since like 1969, is it?
Well, yeah, I was, to put it bluntly, I was brought up on the bottle. So my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, they were all in the wine business, but I'm British from birth. So they thought it would be a good idea if Derek also got into the wine business and got drinking. And of course, Derek, when he was a young guy, he thought that's a great idea. So I was the first person in Great Britain, really, to go to a viticultural college in Germany. I was the first guy to do this back in 1969. That was quite something spectacular because we weren't in the European Union. 1969 was a different world as it is today. Well, that's why I got caught on Riesling. And I thought I would stay in Germany for 2 or 3 years studying viticulture and go back to Great Britain. And lo and behold, it's 2021 now, and I'm still in Germany. And I've got too many friends in Germany now. Germany has become the big success story, I think, in Europe. It's a great democracy, a great country, and a lot of very good people.
Now tell me, how has speaking of good people, you represent a portfolio of family-owned wineries. And so these are not the huge, machine working, estates that are cranking out thousands and thousands and thousands of bottles. These are finely crafted bottles of wine on very interesting estates throughout the country. Tell me a little bit about the portfolio that you have now.
Well, yeah, this is part of my philosophy, or our philosophy, that we are back to the roots. Germany has changed quite spectacularly. We're back, as I said, back to the roots. It's real agriculture. When I first studied viticulture, it was the professors told me at the time, we don't worry what happens in the vineyards, we make the wine in the cellars. Now it's quite different. Now we're really back to Mother Nature, getting to the terroir. And it's the terroir behind me. That's limestone terroir behind me. It's back to the roots, back to Mother Nature. Which is unfortunately a bit tough sometimes, but on the other hand, the quality of the wines has improved. So these are all family estates. It's the difference between beverage wine and fine wines. There's a difference, huge difference. You just have to go up a couple of dollars or $3 or $4 in price, and you get to real authentic wines. And I said that's not just the case in Germany; it's any country. We've got youngsters now in on the business, and I must say, I thought 20 years ago, viticulture in Germany would die out because the youngsters would not be interested in working with the mud and working in the cellars. It's very hard work. And you don't earn much for a living. And I thought people in the time, well, Frankfurt's behind me. I thought people were just going to banking and insurance companies and all the big guys and earn tons of money. But then, of course, along came the economics crisis, and before that, all these youngsters were already getting into Mother Nature. Mm-hmm. And of course, it's the climate change. It's also, we've noticed since 1985, that people are realizing, the youngsters are realizing that we have to be careful what's happening to our future and our future generations. I mean, not my generation, I won't be here, but the future generations, I mean, I must think of my grandchildren. They're going to be very annoyed about how we've ruined this planet. So it's so important that the youngsters are now into authentic wines and taking care of Mother Nature. So we're not spraying insecticides. Mm-hmm. We're getting away from herbicides. We try to avoid fungicides. We even spray things like baking powder. So it's really back to the roots to try and get the real wines out of the terroir. It's absolutely amazing, and it keeps me going just to see how these youngsters work.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the something very important. When I started in 69, it was a man's world. No ladies at all. Now it's at least 1/3, if not more, women.
Wow.
And I must say, I mentioned this last week on another broadcasting, women do the job very well indeed. This is getting me plus points, of course, but I must admit, women are very good at winemaking. They have a very fine sense of feeling, and they work hard. They put on their boots, they get dirty. You can see the women, they have dirty fingers.
I was just planting.
They work damn
flowers up
hard.
front.
They drive the tractor. They're out spraying. They're in the step. They're cleaning the tanks. They're in the dirt. But we have a lot of women in our portfolio who do a tremendous job. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely
So tell
amazing.
me, so I want to talk about climate change, but before we do, I want to talk about, I'd love to hear more about what makes like vineyard management and winemaking in Germany tough work, you know, as opposed to maybe another region where that might be a little different.
Well, as you can see, just over there, whoops, that's the, I gotta get the right way over here. It's a very steep slope. That is the Niersteiner Hipping slope. It's very steep, so it's manual work. We have a lot of manual work, and in the Moser, it's very steep slopes. It's all manual work, so it's tough. And the climate is hard here in Germany. We're quite far up north, so it's a tough climate. But of course, it's the climate change so far has brought positive aspects. We now get ripe grapes every year. It's very positive for us. The only problem we do have is that we have things we've never had before, like a lot of hail or tornadoes. I mean, you know, tornadoes in the US, we never used to have anything like that. Now we have tornadoes ripping through villages, ripping off roofs. My roof's still on, I think it's okay. But these are the new problems, but we're okay. We're okay. It's when hail comes down, it's only in a very small area. So it's always good if you don't have all your vineyards in one little parcel. If you have them spread out, that's the best insurance policy.
Yeah. Well, so
but another problem we have is since 2018 is drought.
Interesting.
We've had since 2018 more or less no rainfall, and this is serious. But for the vines, it's been no problem because we do dry farming. So we make sure the roots go down deep.
Yeah, have the vineyards always done dry farming, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, before 2003, irrigation was not permitted. It was not allowed.
Okay.
Firstly, water is very expensive. You can't just pump water out of the Rhine. You're not allowed to do that. You'll land up in jail. But water is very expensive. So dry farming was the thing forever, even since Roman times. I mean, Romans brought viticulture to Germany 2,000 years ago. And they found the best places to plant vines, the Romans. The Italians were very clever in those days, 2,000 years ago. And it's still the same places we're now cultivating vines. So it's trial and error. It's worked over 2,000 years.
Yeah.
But it's the drought problem, but vines with their roots going down so deep, up to about 12 feet deep, or even deeper, even deeper than that, they get enough moisture. And we've seen that. I saw that amazing pictures of how, when we had this drought, everything was parched and brown. Even the leaves were falling off the trees in the summer because it was so dry, but the vineyards were lush green. It was an amazing sight, even during the drought.
Amazing.
This year has been quite different. We've had plenty of rainfall this year, too much rainfall, and this is the opposite. Down in the south in the Mediterranean countries, they've had tremendous heat. They're up into the hundreds, and it's terrible fires. And we've had the opposite this year. We've had terrible floodings, which has been, it's the other side. Global warming, the change of climate, doesn't mean it just gets hotter. It means it changes.
Right.
The jet stream has slowed down, and we either get a whole year of drought or we get a whole year of rainfall. So we hope it's not going to rain all this year, but so far we're okay. But as I said, last month we had the worst flooding that Germany has had forever.
Yeah. In your time, have you ever seen a flood even similar to the
No,
devastating floods. Have you
I,
seen flooding at all?
I have never seen anything like this in all my life. I experienced it myself because on the R River, the valley, that little valley north of us, 2 hours north of us, we have one of our estates, the Philip Nellis. He's in my portfolio. So after it happened, I went there with my son and volunteered to go and help because the whole valley had been more or less destroyed. I mean, about 300 people have died.
Wow.
And it was a wall of water, like a tsunami that came down that valley. I have never seen such destruction in all my life. I mean, you have to go back to wartime to see anything like that.
Right.
And it's the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, in California, you have the fires.
Right.
It's the same thing. I've seen the fire damage in Napa. I've seen the damage done by fires. So it's fire damage there. And here we have the waters, the flood waters, which have caused such destruction. Thousands and thousands of cars which are smashed to pieces and houses just carried away.
Looking at pictures, I think a tsunami is a really good image to put in people's minds. It did look, looking at the pictures of the R and the villages.
Looking at pictures doesn't give the true picture. Right. As I said, I was there, and to be there, the smell, it's because thousands and thousands of liters, because the R region is a red wine, Spätburgunder. So all the cellars have been emptied of wine.
Wow.
It all went into the river. So the slick and the mud, it was very fine slick, and it stank of red wine, of oil, of petrol, of all sorts of other unpleasant things.
Yeah.
I had to wear a mask the whole day. I have never seen anything like it before. It was, but this is the climate change. I mean, it's hitting us. It's hitting the US and California with fires, and it's hitting us with extreme flooding.
What should the trade and what should consumers expect from future vintages as far as like the climate change is concerned? I mean, has Germany sort of seen pretty much consistent vintages year to year? Are we now expecting things to fluctuate? Like this vintage might be beautiful and the next vintage might be completely different. Maybe it's still beautiful, but in a very different way. Are we to expect like wide swings in vintages?
We are not going to expect. The only thing is going to change is the yields, so the quantities. I mean, looking back over the years, yourself, I mean, we have great vintages like 71, 76, 59, 53, 21. There's been some great vintages in the past, but there's also been a lot of vintages in between where the grapes never ripened. Now, since 85, the grapes ripen every year. But if hail comes or we have moisture at the wrong time with mildew coming in, we lose the crop. So we have good wines. We can harvest good wines every year now. But it can be a great vintage like 2019 or 2018 was good. I mean, if we're looking back over the last few years, it's been fantastic wines every year.
Yeah.
It's just one vintage might be a little bit better, like 2019 was a little bit better, or it might be a little bit better in one area, or one area got frost damage is also a thing. Because we're starting off, the vegetation starts off earlier in the year, it can be that we have cold Arctic weather coming down, and then we have frost damage in February or March, or even in May.
Well,
and we had it this year in France, for example. The youngsters in France have never seen anything like this before, with frost damage coming in April.
Wow.
I mean, this has caused a huge impact in France, down in the south of France as well. It was 5 degrees below freezing in the Mediterranean.
Wow.
And the vines had already started to grow. So, I mean, they were killed off.
Wow.
So these are our modern problems we have to face.
And this is.
But okay, I'm pleased we can face these because at least we get ripe grapes.
You just might have a good vintage. A good vintage today is less so about the grapes ripening because you're pretty much guaranteed ripe grapes. It's more about the yield. But the wine and then the winemaking has changed in Germany. I mean, so Germany's predominantly Riesling and Spätburgunder or Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
That was my horrible German. Yes, beautiful.
Yeah, Germany's numbers we're number one in the world with Riesling and number 3 in the world with Pinot Noir. So that's excellent. And I'm so pleased also in Massachusetts that our sales of Pinot Noir, they're rocketing up as well. And when I started making wine, I learned how to make wine. I'm a winemaker, qualified winemaker. But in those days, I was making red wine like a white wine, which was a shit. Now we have, no. The youngsters are now, I've learned from the youngsters. The youngsters are making real red wines.
Yes.
So we're up to top style, Burgundy style Pinot Noir here in Germany. And it's we got the same sort of temperatures as in Burgundy. So it's possible to make great Pinot Noir in Germany. And the youngsters are doing a great job, whether it's the ladies or the boys, they're doing a great job with real authentic Pinot Noir, malolactic fermentation, unfined, unfiltered. I mean, it's unbelievable. When I started, I would have never believed you could bottle a wine without fining and without filtering. Now they're doing that, no fining, no filtering. It's amazing.
Wow. And largely organic or sustainable, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we might not be certified organic, but they all work, as I said, it's back to the roots. So they're all working in this direction. Okay, with the mildew, they might need a fungicide twice a year. Last year, we didn't need anything. But this year we've had to spray at least 3 times fungicides. Yeah. So it depends on the weather. So, but if you get certified organic, you cannot spray the fungicides. That's the problem. But as I said, we're pleased that we only have to face these problems.
Yeah. Now, let's talk more about Riesling, because Riesling has had quite a journey since 1969.
Oh my God. I mean, in those days, of course, Riesling used to be just sweet.
Yeah.
And there was no really good dry Riesling. But things have radically changed thanks to the youngsters as well. In the beginnings, I mean, perhaps you might have seen the first dry Rieslings coming out of Germany. They were very tart and very lean because we were not making them correctly. A good dry wine, you have to have physiologically ripe grapes, and you have to make a dry wine carefully. And now the growers, the producers are onto this now to make good dry wines from physiologically ripe, healthy grapes. And of course, the grapes are ripe. In those days, in the 70s and 60s, we didn't have ripe grapes every year. And in the Mosel Valley, we had to rely on noble mold, on this botrytis, to even get up to enough sweetness. Now we don't even need botrytis anymore. Botrytis is noble mold. Really? So you can't make a dry wine with noble mold, because it's the honeyed flavor that comes with noble mold, and that tastes bitter. So we just need healthy, ripe grapes, and we get them now. So we can make great dry Riesling, and they're not too tart. They're not too tart.
Yeah, no, and that's amazing. I mean, and that's part of that is the youngsters and their approach to the Riesling, but it also sounds like a lot of that it has to do with climate change, and the ripening of the grapes now actually allow for drier wines as opposed to the sweeter styles that were created.
Oh yeah, I mean this is, so that's why I said at the beginning we're not complaining about the climate change at the moment. It's helped us immensely to get these ripe grapes where we can really ferment the grape juice all the way through to get a dry Riesling. So the acidity is ripe. We have a lot of tartaric acid now. And this tartaric acid is this ripe acidity. And not any unripe acidity components in the juice. So this is, as I said, it's only positive so far for us. No problems.
Except for the flood.
Except for flooding.
Except for the devastation and floods. And occasional droughts and frosts. But
but okay, we can't, the world is never perfect. But as I said, we can live with these few disadvantages. They're okay. But as I say, it's amazing for me to see how these youngsters, and it's not just, I know youngsters from other countries in Europe as well, how hard they work. It's absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. As I said, it's this passion and devotion that they have developed to work with Mother Nature to produce authentic wines, I think is amazing. It's amazing.
So what should we expect from Germany in coming years and from these youngsters? So they're evolving this new generation is evolving the wine industry, and where do you see it going in the next few years?
Well, I see all my estates in my portfolio. It's now the second generation already have taken over.
Yeah.
And the next generation, the youngsters are already the little girls, and they're 10 or 12 or even younger. They're also seeing how mom and dad are working hard, but they will also be interested in working with Mother Nature. I mean, we got in Europe this Swedish girl, Fridays for Future. All the youngsters are now into trying to restore a better situation with the climate. So there's huge changes coming. I mean, Germany's away from atomic power. We're doing away with coal. It's huge changes coming. It's the biggest revolution since the Industrial Revolution.
Amazing.
Coming in Germany over the next 20, 30 years. It's absolutely amazing.
It's time for a glass.
It's going to be expensive. That's the only problem.
We won't worry about that part.
No.
No.
But as I said, it's the same in the US and here with fine cuisine, with the chefs. They produce authentic food.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers markets. I mean, 30, 40 years ago, you never had a farmer's market. Now in the US, you have the farmers markets. It's the same here. People are interested in authentic food. It's the same with wine or beer. I mean, it's the same with anything.
Yeah. Yep. We're seeing those trends
fantastic.
across the United States as well.
Yeah.
Well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. This was our first guest on our new podcast, Slice of Wine. And I am excited to have many more episodes in the future. And Derek, I know you're going on holiday, so have a wonderful holiday.
Well, I'm only a normal human being. I have to have a holiday once in a while.
Well, thank you, everyone, and stay tuned for the next episode.